basically the premise of this presentation is it was like, there's 30 minutes, I can't go over everything with computers and programming because it's a whole tree of things, and I'm really good at a lot of different things, so it's really hard to just, I can't just, summarize the entire 6 years of me learning about computers in 30 minutes well, or, try and convey it to people that might be interested in it. So I was gonna just do a little bit about programming, a little bit about systems administration as well, for 5 minutes, and then just, you guys can ask me whatever you want. And I'll go into that topic a little bit more in depth so we can talk about specifics. So if you're interested in stuff, you can ask about it, what is this like? And I'll answer. So here's the worst headshot you've ever seen, right there. But I'm sure most of you know me. I'm Connor Law, that's my last name. Most of you probably don't actually know that one. I actually set up a personal website recently, so if you want to go check that out, that's connorlaw.tk. And all of my social media is cucumbers_cr. All the titles I give myself for computers is a full-stack web developer, which means I can do front-end and back-end websites. I'm a software engineer, which means I write software that's run on your local computers. So like Chrome, that's an example of that. Systems administrator, we'll talk about that later, and general computer wizard. So programming, we'll just briefly touch that up. So programming is something that people don't really understand. It's we get this just like every field that's specialized, you kind of have a really bad perception in media and movies. It's there's nothing, it's nothing like hacking. It's completely different. And it's an entire engineering process, just like you would if you're designing a product. Let's say you're Airbus and you're trying to build an A380. You would, iterate designs and try and build things over and over again to make it better and better. And that's basically what you're doing with programming. So just when you would write an essay, you get your thinking maps out there, and then you do an outline, and then you actually write it, and then you go and revise it. There's kind of a similar process for programming. So if I have a good idea for a project in my brain, the first thing I'm going to do is pull the whiteboard on my wall off, and then, be I just start scribbling everything down that comes into my mind about what could happen. And then I thoroughly concept that. I have a program called draw.io, and it's a just flowchart thing, but I graph out all of the different parts of the program and how they are interconnected. And then, I sit down and I write code for 40 hours. And then, you go back, you clean up all your code, you make it more efficient. Well, if you're a good developer, you go back and you make it more efficient. If you're not, you just kind of leave it how it is and distribute it there. The other thing is you're supposed to document when you write, but no programmer really does that because it takes forever. And then you ship it up in a .msi, .exe, .deb, whatever platform you're going for, and then push it out on the internet, and people can download it. So that's start to finish. And for some projects, that can be 2 weeks. For some projects, that can be 6 months to 3 years. I'm working on some projects that have been going on for 3 months. There's a lot of planning and business organization things to do with programming. It's not just sitting and writing code for straight up. It's 40% planning, 60% coding. And then it's a lot. Nothing ever works the first time. Well, it's starting to do that more because I'm getting more experience, but it doesn't really happen like that very often. This is something I really like. Programs must be written for people to read and only incidentally for machines to execute. Programming languages are a lot more like English than they are like computer machine code, especially if you're writing in a high-level programming language, because a high-level programming language it doesn't mean it's difficult. It means that it's more steps. It has to go through more compilation steps to get to machine code. So machine code, by the way, is what your computer runs. That's what it's getting loaded directly into your CPU, and your CPU is executing physical tasks. with that data. So you go through so many different layers to get to that point. So like really common language, especially for Windows, is C sharp. It's just like the music note is how you write it. And that has to go to C++, to C, and then to machine code. So that's considered a high-level programming language. And then Python is on another level on top of that. Java is probably even a few more layers up, but it doesn't go through the same process. So that's a real misconception, is we're like, hacking directly into the stuff. We have a lot of abstraction between the hardware and what we do generally, unless you're writing in C. In that case, it's a lot more direct. So yeah, programming is engineering. I already said that, but like you need patience, critical thinking skills, and problem solving to be able to do it and not go berserk. It's like I can be really patient with people, but it's because you're way easier to deal with the computer that I go home to. And anyone can program, but I don't think we should be pushing it as much as we do in some cases. In some cases, we should be pushing it more than we do, but it's like not everybody needs to code. It's not like an essential life skill. And there is no right way to program. There's 10 different ways to do every single thing, like even minute things. And then the one thing I just wanted to review is systems administration, because people don't really understand what that means exactly. But it's basically just anybody that manages computer things. So like I have a IT director at my school and a systems administrator. So the systems administrator is the one who goes in, like, takes care of the servers. If the internet goes down, he's the one that's like hopping in there, fixing it. Well, in our case, it's both of them, because there's 1,800 people that don't have internet and 1,500 calls coming in a second that are very angry about it. So they do like really advanced stuff like DNS. That's what converts like google.com into like an IP address, which is the numbers with 4 dots if it's an IPv4 address. And then the other stuff, which I won't explain. But yeah. So now after that, I just wanted to open up, and you guys can ask me like anything about what you might be interested in, how stuff works or whatnot. Tori might have to unmute you. So I guess just send a message in general if you want to ask a question. I hope that made some sense and wasn't just a like mumble of crap.
Oh, I can talk now. Cool. How do you make a killer robot?
How do you make a killer robot? So in that case, you're going to be like, I have hardware in that like I have access to that are called Arduinos. And you can do this with a whole bunch of different stuff, but they're basically little microcontrollers. So it's like a tiny little computer, just like what you're running on your desktop right now, but it's much less powerful, and it's hardwired directly into like other components. So you can have like motors and stuff hooked up to it, but you just find some hardware that interacts well with it. So like a Raspberry Pi or a Arduino, or build your own custom circuit board if you're that big brain. And then you just solder everything together. And then it's just, you need a lot of electronics knowledge, and you need all the circuits to be calibrated. I've gotten pretty good at circuit design after doing robotics for a long time, because electricity is weird. So yeah, you buy motors, you buy lasers that can burn out human flesh, and then you just solder them together, and then program it so you can walk and like or drive around and just incinerate people.
Can you help me build a mask that reacts to music?
Could I help you? Yes, if you had the parts. That you would probably run that through like a sound recognition API. There's a lot of API work in programming where it's basically somebody makes code that you can interact with very easily. You like import their code into your stuff, right? And then you can interact with it and use their data. So like audio recognition, speech recognition is all like really complicated stuff that you need artificial intelligence to do. So like we have like speech recognition APIs in a lot of programming languages, and what that actually does is it's sending the voice data out to like a server, like a Google Cloud server, and it's running that through a whole AI thing, and then sending back that data to your computer.
Okay, we have another question. I'm going
Okay.
to
Oh,
uncheck.
hello.
So
Okay, yeah.
when you say there's like 10 different ways to do something, is there one most efficient way?
Yes, there's generally a most efficient or like a few equally efficient, like speedy ways to do things. But like if you have a slight variation in what you want to do, this a similar method of doing the same thing might actually be faster in that case. Um, so like one thing you do a lot in programming is just open a file from like a hard drive or an SSD or whatnot. Um, and there's like you like in Java especially, there's like 35 different ways to do that I could like list off. And all of them are like a little bit slower or faster depending on how you want to do it. Um, and so,
What
yes,
does
there's usually a most efficient way, but you got to do some research and find out what is the most efficient way.
efficiency mean though?
Efficiency is the amount of time it takes to execute the code. So like if I write some code, right, that
Mhm.
opens that file, it's like how long does that take? How many milliseconds does that take? Or how many clock cycles on a CPU does that take?
Okay.
And sometimes usually you're talking like sub-millisecond differences, like 0.5 of a millisecond faster. But like if you're programming on a web server, like imagine you're like programming on a server that runs google.com. That has like what? Probably like a billion hits a second from APIs and whatnot. Um, that like half of a millisecond is a huge difference when it scales like that. So it's about scalability usually.
I see. Thank you.
Of course.
So, uh, quick thing for you. You mentioned something about front end coding and back end coding. What are different? Like, what's an example of front end versus back end, and why are they different?
Okay, so I'll use the Google Slides presentation as an example for right now. So this, like all of this stuff that I'm hovering my mouse over, this is all front end because this is what you're interacting with as a user on the internet. So like it's the user interface basically. A back end of a server is how you basically make all that happen. Um, so like this is what you see and this is what you appreciate, but there's a whole bunch of back end stuff. And so back end is just stuff that runs on a server. So like when you like so if I make an edit to this, right, and I like remove this S, it says saving. And then once it says save to drive, like I just made a web request to some Google server, who knows where, that made a edit to some database entry that has now saved that. So that's like back end stuff. And it can get more complicated than that, but that's like back end. So front end stuff runs in a web browser, back end stuff runs on a server.
All right, thanks.
Anything about hardware or games or I don't know, particular languages you want to learn, or if you're interested in. Is anybody interested in programming? I think Devlin might be, at least in Java.
I've learned like a little bit of Java, like JavaScript, like super, super, super basic stuff. But
Mm.
is there like a specific way that you recommend like learning? Is there like a specific program? Are there like specific practices that you would like recommend?
Mm.
Specifically, HTML is what I have done in the past and probably what I'm most interested in.
Okay. HTML is interesting because it's not, I mean, this you can get into a whole debate if you talk to like people in the programming space about whether HTML is a programming language or not.
Mhm.
The problem with the HTML stands for hypertext markup language, and so markup says it's not a language, and language says it is a language. So it's conflicting in that. Um, But the way I learned how to program everything is I taught myself. Um, and so I don't if you're like looking to take a class in it, I don't really know what the
Right.
best way is, but I think if you're getting started with something, so like I actually just earlier this week I decided to start learning Node.js, which is a backend JavaScript thing. Um, and the thing I always usually do is I look into it. I like look at their official website, um, and I just read what it's about and see if it's something that's actually worthwhile to me, other than just what I've like heard about it.
Hmm.
And then once I decide I'm gonna do it, I'll like watch some basic like video tutorials on whatever it is. So like how to do this, how to do that. So it'll take you through like the basic steps to like do it. But once you're kind of like, okay, I kind of get this, but like there's still things I need to learn. That's when I moved to just working my way through the documentation, because basically everything has documentation. So if you're
Hmm.
working on HTML, a OK resource is W3 Schools, not for learning, but for docs. I don't.
Okay.
Their learning is doesn't really have the best practices with web development in there. Um, but you just go through the docs and then you find a way to use it, and you just do that for a lot of like test applications, and you just build out your skills in the entire like subset of the language. So in HTML you could learn that really fast, and then you have to go to CSS, and then if you want to
Hmm.
get fancy you have to learn JavaScript as well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I want to make a game but know nothing. I planned to do a course on how to make something. Okay. Um YouTube tutorials are great if you want to like learn how to do some interesting things. They maybe don't have like a start to finish course, but Brackeys, he has like little brackets as his icon on YouTube. He has some really great tutorials on Unity. There's two main game engines you'll probably work with if you're going to start, and that's Unity or Unreal. Um, okay, yeah. Um, So in Unity, you're going to program in C sharp. Yeah, it's C sharp, which is much friendlier because it's higher level. Um, and then the thing about game development is you have to learn how to 3D model stuff. So you're going to have to get down like Blender is probably a good resource. It's totally free. You can download it off Steam. Um, oh, thank you. I meant to put that up with the Fiverr picture. Um, and Having a bad PC and doing game development are very interesting. I've tried to do it before, and I've never really got into it, partly because game development isn't really my thing because I don't like 3D modeling that much, unless it's for like 3D printing, which is totally different. Um, but you can start on a Unity project if you have like an i3 and like 8 gigs of RAM. Um, you can do fine. You're not gonna you're not gonna make a AAA title with that, but you can get started with that. So I would say follow that process that I was just telling Tori about. Look into Unity. Uh, look into because Unity has a whole API that you use to interact with their game engine, just like I was talking about, where you pull someone else's code and you can interact with it really friendly. Um, and then look into 3D modeling, find a way to do it that you like. There's a huge learning curve on 3D modeling. The first month you do it, you're going to be like, what the hell am I even doing? What does any button mean? And there's so many buttons. It's like the first time you open Photoshop. And then, yeah, that's the two things you need to know: is 3D modeling and coding, and then just getting familiar with the UI for Unity or Unreal. I would say start with Unity probably. I think it's easier than Unreal, but I've never tried Unreal, so do your own research. What projects are you working on right now? So I'm currently working on starting a Minecraft hosting platform with two other people. One of them I'm teaching how to program myself, and the other is going to be sort of a systems administrator slash business role. So I'm writing a Java thing that manages all the servers automatically, and so you can like connect to console from anywhere, and you have a nice web UI to interact with everything. Really fast, really efficient. Um, Programming plugins to put on a Bungee Cord server to automatically route people depending on what IP address they're trying to go to, and all that. I'm working on my software distribution website, cucumbertech.com. I'm also working on a set of Minecraft plugins that are my like C series, which are like my like important like big useful plugins, which is Land, which is a land management plugin, Factions, which extends that to make it a faction server, Eco, which is like way smarter economics than Volt or Essentials provides, and those are the three. I think there might be something else further down the line with that series, but yeah, that's what I'm working on right now, and I'm learning Node.js as well. Okay. Yeah, 3D modeling is it's just like art. You just need to practice. It's like not just like art. It's just like anything. You just need to practice it, and you'll get better at it. 2D games are definitely easier to start because you just have to make PNG files and not 3D model files. I don't know if you're asking that to me or Major, but have I ever used Blender? Yes, but not in a capacity where I could show somebody how to use it. Okay, we got 8 more minutes. Anybody have any like questions about like servers or something, or how the internet works? Like you can go like big broad questions. Okay. Okay, VPNs. This is kind of a hot take. Not everybody agrees with me on this. But the way VPNs advertise to you is 99% like scammy, manipulative, predatory advertising. Here's what a VPN does. It hides your IP address. That is it. That's the only thing it does that you don't get without a VPN. Why would you want to hide your IP address? It does not really improve your privacy at all. Unless I would only recommend a VPN to one specific set of people, and that is a public figure. If you have a lot of people that would have the intention of, disrupting your internet service, and IP addresses are geolocatable. For example, if you were to find out my IP address and type it into ipdata.co, it is within 800 meters of my house. So IP addresses can be location-sensitive data, and you should treat them like that. But it doesn't really offer you that much privacy protection. You're already using, you hear a lot of military-grade encryption with VPNs. If you have a little lock in your browser, you're using something called TLS, which is Transport Layer Security, and that has military-grade encryption, and it has server identification. So that means your data is encrypted in transit, so it can't be intercepted or changed, and it's also you're authenticated as the server you say you are, so you can't have man-in-the-middle attacks where somebody changes what is on your page to try and trick you. So you are completely secure on the web if you're using a website with good privacy practices. You don't have to read the privacy policy, that's just something I like to do, but look for a privacy policy. Just if they have one, that means they've thought about it. And don't click links you don't trust. That's the 3 things you don't really need a VPN. Unless you're like a specific set of people and you want to like access a network from somewhere else. Like my school has that. I shouldn't really tell you that, but you won't find their IP address anymore. All right, I will explain APIs. So API stands for application interface something. Actually, I don't know what it stands for. I have to look it up. What does API stand for? Application Programming Interface. Okay. So there's two different kinds of APIs. If somebody says API, they probably mean one of two different things. They mean a web API. So like Twitch has an API, for example. And you can make a web request just like you do with your browser, just a little bit different. And you can pull data off of that. So most of the time it's in JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. It's just a way of formatting data so computers and programming languages can interact with it very nicely. So like I can actually I do that all the time. Like if I'm like, because I'm a moderator in some Twitch channels, and so if I'm like trying to get to the bottom of something, I'll pull extra data from Twitch APIs that you can't get as a normal like UI user. So like I have a client token with Twitch, and I can just pull extra data. Like now you can't get followers on Twitch with the web UI, but I can still do that with the Twitch API. So that's how you like interact, and then you can like Google Docs has an API, so like I can interact with a spreadsheet and like add a row programmatically from a computer. Then there's like an API for like code. So like in Minecraft, that seems like a relevant topic. There's the bucket API. So Spigot actually acquired Bucket because the Bucket team abandoned the project, and so they picked it up. So that's why we still have Minecraft plugins nowadays. They are the same thing, by the way. That's basically somebody has written code so I can do things easier. So like, I'd have to like insert my own code into Minecraft to write a plugin, which is like really hard. Or I could just download a like Bucket plugin, like the Bucket API, and hook my plugin into it, and I can like be like player dot or like bucket.getServer.getPlayers, and I can just get every single player, and I can control everything. I can set your health. I can teleport you. I can basically do anything you can do in Minecraft. And so an API just makes it way easier to interact with people. Or interact with not people, but computers. Computers are my people. Okay, we got 2 more minutes. I like to have really long-winded explanations, and I hope they make sense, because I honestly don't know if they do. The silence makes me alarmed. Jazz? Yes, I like to listen to that when I'm programming. What is the best way to run a Minecraft server? Personally, if you're not interested in troubleshooting or fixing problems or like giving out your IP address to people, just go with a hosting provider. Just pick a good one. Well, when mine comes out, you can use mine. Shameless self-promotion right there. But the best way, I would say, is probably a paper server, because you don't have to wait like 20 minutes for it to build a software for Spigot. And it has a whole bunch of efficiencies. It makes some like redstone contraptions not work, but like I don't know. If you're that into like redstone engineering, use Spigot, but most of the time use paper. It has like better logging. It's more efficient. It uses way less RAM. I can already tell you that. It computes server ticks faster, which is like it's like kind of like a frame in GUI, but like on the processing backend of like all the entities in the server. So an entity is like a creeper or a player or an item frame even. Yeah, so higher TPS is faster server performance. Usually you're aiming for 20. And yeah, so I would say download Paper, just go to papermc.io, download it, make a start.batch script. You have to install Java. Just put java-jar, paper.jar, and then no GUI, and then allocate it RAM if you want to, and then start it up. Then you have to do port forwarding on your router. So if you live with other people, you'll have to ask them about it, but there's really no security risks with doing that. Very limited, at least. It's pretty hard to do that wrong, especially with Minecraft. If there's a better way, yeah, I don't know. As long as you aren't stupid, you're fine if you port forward. Yeah. If there's a better way, you can, like, I've done this before where I sign up for Google Cloud because they give you like $300 of free credits. They're a really expensive hosting provider, so if you actually want to pay for it long term, don't use that. Use DigitalOcean. You can use my referral code, by the way. Not sponsored, by the way. And grab that. And you can set up a server, install Java, run it off there, and then it's up in the. Is the website FreeDNS actually good or is it dangerous? I think they're okay. I think they're fine. Yeah, you can get a Google Cloud server and run a server for like 6 months for free, basically. In the cloud, you don't have to expose your IP address. It's running a data center. It never goes down. As long as you know how to use like terminal, which might be a task to learn. Terminal easy, but it scares some people. Okay, well, it's 1:32. We should probably go over to Bella's room. I think she's next soon, but if anybody has any quick questions, I'll answer them and then we'll go.
Thank you, Connor.
You're welcome. Was it good?
It was wonderful.
Cool. All right. Everyone off to room 3.
Room 3.